driving my car. That is the big negative.
And last night he was driving my 62 Savoy, and at every traffic light he did a massive burnout.
Don't believe it. I wouldn't do that.
Oh, no, I got witnesses. Payback is a bitch.
Is it on film?
No.
That it didn't happen?
No. Yeah, this is all from memory, so it may not be exactly in chronological order. The Duster did okay on the one lap. It finished second overall, which, considering it was my daily driver, was not really. So then I forgot there's another car. A friend of mine had a Spirit RT, Joe Leonard, and we ran that one year. And Joe looked around to find somebody that could really drive. And I forget what track we were at. It was in the Midwest someplace. He put the thing on the roof. And everybody thought we're out. But somehow, I don't remember how the hell we did this. We made it back to New York. And I had a Lancer Shelby Turbo 2. And we showed up at the next event with that. And obviously, you can't substitute cars. We were out of the running.
Right.
But we just wanted to continue and
Enjoyed it,
well, not only that, show that we weren't quitters.
Right. Okay.
And that happened several other times in the brick, too. Kevin, kind of had some unintended meetings with tire wars. Now we're back to Mopar Action with my Valiant. Right, the green brick.
Up till then, you ran the Duster and then some other cars, and then now you joined Mopar Action. So the first time, One Lap of America, you were driving the brick for the first time with that magazine.
Right, and I had always two teammates. Joe Leonard did a lot of the track driving. I don't think Dave Zalkowski ever went with me in the brick.
So these are guys that you've driven with in the past. And then Mopar Action came along and you're looking for a race driver for the circuits?
None of these were pro race drivers except the guy that put the Spirit RT on the roof. Okay? But, so I'll tell you how Kevin Wesley, who now is a semi-pro driver for Chrysler, he runs Pike Peak events and whatnot, the Valiant was ready to run the one lap, which at that year, and I want to say probably early to mid 1990s.
So when you joined Mopar Action in this case, did you introduce this to Mopar Action because you came from the other magazine?
No, because don't forget, Cliff had been following High Performance Mopar because he had been the editor, so he was aware of it.
So when you came on to Mopar Action, it was a given that you were going to try. So, but you changed cars though, because originally you didn't want to race the brick.
That's right.
Tell them quickly how the brick came about. Its name.
That was many years later. A reader, just in some letter or some website, called it the green brick, and it stuck. I wish I knew who the guy was, but boy,
because of its shape, it looked like a brick going down the road.
Although one of my co-drivers, a rocket scientist from Sandia National Laboratories, Mark Rubelik, I still remember he's running his hands over the body line, the front of the hood, the windshield, how it meets the roof, and he says, somebody really paid attention to the aerodynamics of this car. And I'm like, I don't think so.
Okay, so now we've just gone forward. We'll go back. So now it's the first time you're racing in the Valiant.
Right.
For Mopar Action.
Right.
And who were the drivers and what engine was in it?
Well, okay, the 340 was getting pretty tired. All right, so I was saying that the 340 in the green brick was getting pretty tired. It had been street raced for years. So Mopar Performance had just come out with a 380 horse 360 crate engine. I believe that was an LA engine, not a Magnum.
Right.
And got one of those, put it in, and the performance was, it was
noticeably better, yeah.
It was as good as the 340 with W2 heads because I guess the longer stroke, whatever.
Yeah.
And we ran the one lap. Starting.
So this is the first time though in the brick.
Right.
For Mopar Action.
Correct.
And the race started where?
Well, I don't really remember for sure, but one of the early ones started at the Race Rock Cafe in Detroit. Huh. And Dave Zelkowski, this will nail down the year. Dave Zelkowski was going to be one of the co-drivers along with Joe Leonard. And he was a Chrysler engineer, and they were just introducing a new upgrade or new version of the minivan. And his boss told him, you can't take off. This thing is being released in a couple of weeks, etc.
I see.
So he bailed out. So now I'm like, who's going to be the third driver?
Yeah.
So I really didn't know too many people in the Detroit area, but I knew the guys up at an outfit used to be called Muscle Motors in Lansing. They were a Mopar engine builder.
Right.
And they had built an engine for one of my other cars. I was really tight with them.
Yep.
I called them up. I said, what are you guys doing for the next week or 10 days? They go, oh, no. We got too much going. We said, we got this accountant who works for us. He's 18 years old, but he seems to be very level-headed. You know, his father's into Mopars. I said, send him down.
So you never even seen him drive?
Never seen him drive, never met him. We wanted him just to drive the highway segment so we could sleep, right?
Right, okay.
So
you have always had three drivers in the car?
you were allowed 2 people or 3 people in the car, but we wanted 3.
Because you had so many miles to do. How many miles a day were you doing?
Typically 1,000, I guess.
Oh, that's a lot.
Now, the Valiant back seat was actually pretty good for sleeping. You curl up in the fetal position. I slept like a baby back then, like a baby.
We'll all say you were knackered because you're doing all those miles. You'd be tired.
Yeah, but it didn't matter. You could be hammering, banging gears and whatnot. I'm still zoned out. It was great. So something happened that year. I don't remember. I think Kevin hit a tire wall, and the car was not mortally wounded. And I may have some of this wrong, but the basic premise is correct. And we fell back. That one event, we fell back to like last place in that event. So that put us down from like 2nd, 3rd, or 4th overall. And first Nicholas, it put us way down in the standings.
Right.
So we get to this one track in Connecticut. It was this tiny little paved oval, 1/4 mile tops. It's like racing inside a toilet bowl. And we're out of the money. We're just having fun now. And Kevin says, can I drive it? I said, just don't wreck it. Knock yourself out, right? So that's right. Kevin hadn't wrecked the car. I guess it was Joe that had wrecked the car. Because Kevin hadn't driven yet.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So he gets in, and he finishes like 4th or 5th overall.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah.
So the next morning we're at Loudon, New Hampshire, which is a big NASCAR oval. And the way the one lap ran the NASCAR ovals, you typically run half a lap around the oval. Then there was usually an infield road course, then back around the oval again.
Right.
And the one lap, you generally, even just despite the name, you ran 2 laps at virtually every event,
right,
except the drag races and rallies. But all the road courses and ovals, you got 2 laps.
So did you get the best lap of the 2, or they add the 2 together?
Add the 2 together.
Right.
Okay. So we get to Loudon, New Hampshire. It's early in the morning, dew on the road, and Kevin heads out there. And I tell you the truth, I was a nervous wreck. I said, how am I going to tell his father if he gets killed? The car had a 5-point harness, but no cage, because I always thought, A-body sedans don't need cages, and I still believe that. I mean, frame connectors, yeah, but cage, no. Kevin goes out there, and the track is wet, and he finishes like 6th or 7th overall. This is out of 100 cars. We're talking Ferraris, Aston Martins, Vets, you name it.
Wow.
So after that, at the end of that year, Kevin says to me, can I take, and he'd never run before, by the way, this is just natural instinct. He said, can I take the car to a driving school? I said, come fetch it. So he and his father showed up at my place. They got the brick. They brought it to a driving school in Atlanta called Car Guys. And Kevin just blew them away. Blew them away. After the first event, they said, you want to be an instructor?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So then the next event was at Summit Point, West Virginia, and I got invited. And this is the first time I had any real inkling, professional guidance of how to drive a road course. And I said, Kevin's the best, but I can drive too.
Yeah.
So the car did very well, and it ran, I don't know, must have run the one lap 6 or 7 times. But Brian wants me to tell a lot of little vignettes, or little stories about some of the...
But wait a minute. Okay, so before we go on to the funny stories, or the little short stories, so what was its best result in all the races that it did over, how many years? 15 years? 12
No,
years?
the brick probably ran the one lap, I'm going to say 7 times.
7 times.
Don't know that for a fact.
And what was its best result, you think?
2nd overall.
Which is unbelievable.
Unbelievable. There were factory-entered Corvettes with tuner Corvettes. Yeah, all right, I'll tell you that vignette first, even though it's not. It's the last one, or the last one that I remember. We show up at Watkins Glen, which is a pretty daunting track if you're not familiar with it. Kevin had never run. You did get on the one lap to run one warm-up lap so you could learn the track as if you could learn a track in one lap. Forget it. So Kevin turns out to be sick as a dog. I mean, as a dog. So I'm laying there on a blanket waiting for our group to be called, thinking I'm going to have to drive this track. And frankly, I'm pretty nervous. In about 5 minutes, they call the class, and Kevin said, "Don't worry, I'm driving." And he's sweating. He's got God knows what's wrong with him. He gets in the bucket seat. We had 5-point harness. He makes me pull the seatbelt so tight, I didn't know how he could breathe.
Yeah.
And he goes out there, and the way the one lap worked on the road courses, they put 5 cars out at a time, starting 15 seconds apart. The concept was there wasn't supposed to be any passing. It's never supposed to be any passing. And on the second lap, Kevin passes the factory-entered Viper. And, of course, that screwed up their scoring because they weren't expecting any passing. And they had us much slower. So we said, no, we passed that Viper. And they didn't believe it. The Viper drivers came and said, yeah, that Valiant passed us. You just can't make this up, right?
So was that at that time, was he running nitrous?
Yes. We had been running nitrous. We ran nitrous probably the last 2 years we ran the one lap. We had a 15-pound nitrous bottle in the trunk. And to the best of our knowledge, if somebody wants to say this isn't true, let me know. But this is the first time that nitrous was used on a road course. At Watkins Glen, we ran through a 15-pound nitrous bottle in 2 laps. Now, at Watkins Glen, the back straight, you can come into that, and I haven't been there in a long time, but you come into the back straight at about 100. It's an uphill, and there used to be a turn at the top of the hill, which was pretty tight, and there were quite a few wrecks there. So just before the hill, they put in like a chicane, a right and a left.
Take the speed off.
They called it a bus stop, right? That's what it kind of looked like, a bus stop. And there was a guy at the bus stop with a radar gun. And he said, yeah, I was here for the NASCAR sedans had been there the day before. And he said, you guys, I clocked you at 163, and the NASCAR cars were going 10 to 15 miles an hour slower. That's when I knew I had done something right.
So did the nitrous come on like on the main straight coming out of that?
That was up to Kevin. I had a button on a spoke of the steering wheel.
Right.
And I did that hit the nitrous, and I did that deliberately so that if he took his right hand off the wheel to shift, he would have to let off on the nitrous.
So to get the engine a brake.
Well, to keep from blowing it up, basically, whatever. And, I drove it some with the nitrous. It was pretty fast. And that car had a Ray Barton, towards the end, it had a Ray Barton built 340 with iron W2 heads, a Mopar Performance X block, which was the thick cylinder wall version. And it made 505 at the crank. Wow. And it was totally streetable. So,
and was that stroked? Was it 340?
It was a 340, the Mopar Performance X block, which was basically a 340 block, and a 3.79-inch forged steel crank, which I want to say came from Scat, but I can't remember. And I don't remember what the rods were. Barton spec'd out the forged pistons.
Right.
Ray Barton, I mean, that's the best engine builder on the planet, production type engines. And the car just absolutely performed. It was completely trouble-free. So we're back after another coffee break. The last couple of years, I converted the car to multi-point injection done by a guy by the name of Rance Baxter in the middle of Pennsylvania. This guy, I'm still friends with him. He really knew his stuff. He took the Holley single-plane manifold. He machined it for injector bungs, machined the fuel rails, etc.
Right.
Taught me how to program the Excel DFI, which for that period of time was as good as it got.
Pretty advanced.
Yeah,
then,
pretty
wasn't
advanced.
It?
Pretty advanced. So we even had a wide range O2 sensor. So we also put in 8 EGT sensors, thermocouples, in each exhaust port.
Right.
So we could tune each cylinder individually, which even most factory cars today don't do.
Right.
So one of the last events, it might have been the last one, the co-driver, my buddy rocket scientist Mark Rublik, I picked him up at Newark Airport. He gets in the car, never seen fuel injection before. I stick the laptop in his lap.
Yeah.
And I said, "Here, tune it, bitch." Right? And the car just ran fine. Tuning a wide open throttle is a piece of cake.
Right.
It's the part throttle
Yep.
that separates
Progression.
the men from the exactly.
Yeah.
That's the and then fuel economy.
Yeah.
So he was a firm believer in the Chrysler lean burn system, where they ran 15 to 16 to 1 air fuel and lots of advance when you're cruising. I mean, lots of advance.
Yeah.
We're talking 58, 60 degrees when most cars ran 52, 53 going
Yep.
down the highway,
Yep.
vacuum and mechanical and initial. So we run the one lap of America. We go to, 7 days, 8 days. And he says, "Where have we been?" He had his head in the laptop the whole day.
Yeah.
Every day, all day. When we started the event, the thing was getting about 13 miles a gallon, which I thought was pretty good for a 500 horsepower nitrous race motor. By the last couple of days, it was getting a solid 20 miles a gallon.
Wow. That's amazing.
So, yeah, it was amazing.
So he also tuned it to run the nitrous oxide underneath the throttle body.
He did the nitrous tuning, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. The enrichment for the nitrous was handled in the EFI system.
So no matter what you did with the button, shot the nitrous in, it was 150 horsepower shot.
Yes.
And then the fuel was increased by the computer to match the nitrous, so you could melt it down.
I don't think the wide range O2 sensor could react quickly enough. I think Mark had programmed each cell. It's basically the program was a giant spreadsheet, basically.
Yep.
And you change each cell. But he had it running so lean on the highway, you could just feel the engines just barely.
Making
it was great.
Yeah.
It was absolutely fantastic.
But when the nitrous is on, it was as rich as anything.
Mark was a believer that it made more horsepower at about 13 or 13.5 to 1, not the standard 12.5.
Right.
And who am I to argue with a rocket scientist?
It kept working. It didn't blow up.
If we get into another nuclear war, it'll be his stuff.
Yeah.
Literally. So, he knew his stuff, no question.
Great.
I wasn't going to argue with him on tuning.
You did tell me a little story years ago, which I thought was quite funny. In your racing one lap of America, and you lined up in a queue waiting to go back on the track.
Yep.
And there was like factory teams behind you.
Yep.
And they were complaining. Tell us about that little bit.
Well, we're at some track. I want to say it was Indiana. Who knows? After a while, it's always just a blur. And they ran the groups of 5 cars approximately in your standing order. So if you were in 8th place overall, let's say, you would be in the second group. So I guess we were in the second group, the first car in the second group, which would have meant we were in 6th place overall. And again, I don't remember the details. And some factory entered Mercedes is behind us. And here's this clapped out Valiant. And we always played the role. DA hairdos, packs of Luckies rolled up in our greasy t-shirt. Not quite to that extreme, but we always tried to give it to Brock Yates as much as we could. Here's all these guys in these driving suits and leather gloves, and we're wearing Walmart gloves. It was great. We deliberately did that.
Yeah.
So they're complaining like, what's wrong? That Valiant can't be ahead of us.
Yeah.
And the guy walks over with the standing, the sheet, and he says, "They're in 6th place, you're in 7th." And while we're in the staging lanes, I had the passenger seat in with wing nuts. I pulled out the passenger seat. That thing was like 75 pounds, right?
Yeah.
I pulled out the passenger seat. Did that at every track.
Yeah.
So at the next event, here's Hans and Fritz and their factory entered Mercedes, and they're trying to rip out the right front seat. It's got airbags and wires and stuff, and they're going completely. But they did get it out. We still beat them.
So, can you briefly touch on the modifications? Because you obviously scienced the car out over a period of time. And you did quite a few suspension changes, didn't you?
Well,
when I say quite a few, I mean you improved, finessed it a bit.
Okay. At the time, the best suspension that you could buy, first of all, the 73 and up front cross member, the K member, was a significant improvement in several ways. So while the car was still on the street, just after, when I put the 340 in fact, after I pulled out the 198 slant 6, I put in a new from the dealer 73 cross member, which had the advantage of the spool type motor mounts
Right.
and a better sway bar setup. It just had some minor upgrades. And after I put it together with the 340, the car just didn't drive very well. It was like a handful to drive fast. And it had been just sheer pleasure with the Slant 6.
Right.
And I started thinking, I had the front end guy check the alignment. He says it's right. He says it's right. And I started reading some of Larry Shepard, Chrysler engineer, wrote a lot of books, suspension. And he talked about bump steer. And I said, that's got to be it. So I took it back to the alignment guy and I said, do me a favor, put it on the rack. Let's back off the torsion bars and then put a jack, bottle jack under the K member and run it up and down and see what happens to the toe end.
Yeah.
And it was all over the map.
Right.
So using...
just to explain that means the suspension goes from full bottom to full top over its full radius.
Right.
And when a suspension does that, if it's not right, it'll make your wheels come in and out as it goes over the radius. So that's what bump steer is.
That's what bump steer is.
Right.
The toe should change a minimal amount as the suspension goes through its travel. So reading Larry Shepard's book and reading some other race books, I figured out that what was wrong was the idler arm mount had been welded on wrong.
Uh-huh.
So
on that particular K-frame, on all of them?
I've heard rumors that mine wasn't the only one.
Oh, okay.
So I ovaled out the holes, put on flat washers. We dialed in the bump steer, and then I welded the flat washers to the
So
bracket.
you relocated the position of the idler arm.
Exactly.
Further
And
forward or back, you don't remember.
who remembers?
Okay.
But the bottom line is you can check any Mopar by eye in about a minute.
Right.
You just look under the car. That steering center link
Yep. Should be parallel.
should be parallel to the ground. Exactly.
Yeah, it should
If
be on the
that's
square,
right,
yeah.
chances are you're okay. That's not proof, but if it's not, if it's at an angle, there's a problem.
So had you done strengthening, bolstering of the idler arm mount and the steering box mount?
Later on, when I had it apart again, putting in a different motor, who remembers, there was this original 340 and then a couple of 360 crate motors. One was defective with the raisin upside down.
Yeah.
Another 340, and then the Barton built two 360 crate motors, and the Barton built
Right.
Stroker 340, which incidentally comes out just about 392 cubic inches, which is the same as the modern 6.4. Even the Bourne Stroker are pretty close.
Yeah, okay.
So
So while they were out, you did some upgrades.
we just added a bunch of gussets because I had noticed many, many, many years ago, in like 1966, 67, I was at a dealership. Even that far back, a couple of the local dealerships knew if they had a really serious problem that the mechanics couldn't diagnose, they had me come over
for
free, just in return for super discounts on the part. Didn't cost them anything. And I noticed that on several Mopars, that, I'd be looking, trying to find a noise or some play, and the guy would be turning the steering wheel back and forth, and I noticed the whole steering box is moving.
It's rocking.
Yeah, I'm like,
flexing.
That's not good.
Yeah.
So we added gussets, and Dick Ross Firm Field in Washington State added, piped in and made some gusset kits and whatnot.
Right.
But yeah, reinforcing the K member. I don't know if that really does much for your handling, but it certainly makes the steering more precise. It's just another step forward.
And what about the rear end? It was still leaf spring rear.
The leaf spring never changed. When I first put it together, I bought a pair of Mopar Performance, I think they call them 3,000 pound or 3,200 pound A-body leaf springs.
Right.
And the car sat way up like this,
Yeah.
and that wasn't too good for handling, so I took them to a spring shop, and I had them de-arched. They just put them in a giant press,
Yep.
and I told them how much arch with the springs sitting upside down on the
How
floor.
much of the car to come
and
down?
they're still in the car.
Yeah, right.
It's still, the other thing that it had was wheel hop.
Right.
And, everybody said, oh, you need traction bars, and I knew that was no good.
Yep.
And then I noticed that this company called Rancho, I think they're a division of Holley today, made a quadrashop setup for the pickup trucks. A pair of horizontal shocks so that it would control the axle wind-up without stiffening the suspension.
Yeah, right.
And about that same time, the 5-liter Mustangs came out, and I read that they had quadrashocks. So I bought the pickup truck kit
Yep.
and just bolted in and totally stopped all the wheel hop.
Yeah, okay.
And in fact, Dick Ross at Firm Field is now selling that as a kit specifically
Right.
for A, B, and E
Okay.
bodies
Yeah,
and
right.
whatnot. It adds a little unsprung weight, but to get rid of the wheel hop, it was worth it.
So you also had an upgraded dash cluster.
Yeah, later on, there was this company called Rocky Mountain Dashes. They're now out of business. They were in Denver. They made, I don't know if they CNC'd them, but they made this all aluminum dash with recessed gauge pods. You could put in any gauges you want,
Right.
and I added a set of autometer gauges, which is, you've seen it, it's pretty nice,
so
right?
it's nice looking, but also a lot gives you more information. The original dash gave you nothing back in the
Well,
day.
the original dash had no tack and no oil pressure gauge.
That's
We
right,
always
yeah.
had a tack, but
Yeah.
it was hanging under the dash because I didn't want to make holes in the dash. And everybody
couldn't
who
see
ever
it.
drove it complained about
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So as far as, you want to know what was done to the car? It's simplicity itself. Okay, it maintained leaf springs.
Yeah.
Until the very end, it maintained rear 10-inch drum brakes.
Right.
Only because I found that the braking bias or proportion was better with the 10-inch than the 11,
Right.
and never had a problem with brake fade.
Yeah.
I used the 10-inch finned rear drums.
Yeah.
At front, right to the very end, ran the 11 and 3/4-inch late 70s police car, quote unquote, rotors. And the reason the police car ones were different, they had reinforcing ribs inside the hub.
Right.
Because those were one-piece rotors. They didn't have a forged hub, so we were depending on the cast iron for strength.
Right.
But I think most of the aftermarket ones now have all the ribs.
What else?
Andy Finkbeiner runs a company also in Washington State, AR Engineering. He made me up a set of caliper adapter brackets to use Viper 4-piston Brembo calipers
Right.
on the cop rotors. To make that work, we had to use 73 through 76 A body drum brake knuckles.
Oh,
Everybody called
okay.
spindle.